Hi, I'm Brian Boggs and welcome back to Boggs Bench. Today I want to talk about how to sharpen and use a rectangular card scraper, and more importantly I'm going to talk about why each of the steps that I do has developed the way it has and what's important about each step, so that as you try new things you'll be able to hold them against what I've been saying today. So I've got a Veritas burnishing rod, which is totally fine. You don't need anything fancy. A router bit shaft is fine. I've got lots of different scrapers here of different ages. This is a newly Nielsen and one I've had around for a while. I've sharpened these in different ways and I'll talk about those when I demonstrate them on these pieces of wood here. First I want to talk about just the basic sharpening method that I use for sharpening any scraper. If you're just sharpening a new one, I would highly recommend that you file off about a 32nd of an inch off of both long edges. In my experience, I've found that that metal is usually damaged from the shearing of the tool when they made them out of sheet metal. And also, because they're sheared generally, one of the edges is rounded over and the other one protrudes a little bit, and you gotta take all that material off before you get back to a true rectangular cross section. So that's the first thing. Get really aggressive with a file. And I'll just set this file up like a lot of people have, just a table saw cut and a block of wood, and you can clamp it up in a vise just like everybody else does and file away. I don't use a file except on new ones because files just don't last that long, and the way that I've seen jigging them up, you end up wearing the file in the same place all the time, and that helps deteriorate the tool pretty quickly. What I do instead is I'm making a simple little poplar block, doesn't matter if it's maple or cherry or whatever it is. I've sawed a quick bandsaw cut here to make sure that it's square and centered, and then I screw it together at the end, because often when you resaw it, it'll open up a little bit and not hold the scraper tight. What I want is a nice fit here so that it slides through easily, but it doesn't wiggle. So what I'm going to do is just press down on the blade firmly, press down on the wood gently, just enough to hold it flat against the stone. And then I'm going to hone, and I'm going to keep changing directions for two reasons. One is so that I don't wear the stone unevenly. Even though this is a diamond plate, it's not going to get unflat, but it's going to dull more quickly if I have the same pattern of sharpening every time. It's going to dull in a pattern. So I'm going to change my angle every few strokes, putting pretty firm pressure in this phase of it, because right now I'm needing to remove a fair bit of material. Because if I'm just going back to the stone, I will have either be working a brand new tool or one that I've turned the burr over several times. I will have a work hardened edge and a very distorted corner here from several resharpenings of the burr. So I need to get rid of all of that material. And you can tell when you've gotten past the work hardened area, it will start giving you a lot more friction, a lot more smooth cutting friction. And when you feel that, take a few more strokes. So again, this is just honing on the initial coarse side. I want to look at the reflection of light on this edge, and I don't want to see a secondary reflection of light at the corners. I want to see a continuous reflection. And I can see right here, I'm going to look again with the lens, but it looks like I missed a spot. Yes, there's a little tiny area here that needs a little bit more honing. I don't know if the camera can pick that up. Can you see that? You'll have to hit it at an angle, Melanie, where you see a secondary line of light right at this corner. Can you see it?
No, but I can see a line of light. I just not seeing a secondary line.
Okay.
But you had to use a loop, so.
Yeah, one of the things that I have noticed in teaching students is that if you start using a loop or a magnifying glass, this is a 10 power, you'll start seeing things and you'll get used to the pattern of light reflecting off of them, and after a while you won't need the lens anymore. You'll be able to notice a pattern of light. So I'm going to take a few more strokes here, and then we'll go to the finer stone. I'll lighten up on my pressure here. Take another look. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to pull this out of here. The finer stone is on the other side of this. This is just an old rough file I use as a pry bar. It's not part of this process other than that. So the other thing I'll use this block for is to get really good even pressure and plenty of it right at the edge. But right now, because I've already honed this side once, not on camera, but I did it a little while ago, I just got this edge flattened, and that's leaving a substantial wire edge on both sides. Now that's a honing wire edge. That's not at all like the burr. This is a fractured segment of material that I need to get rid of. These tools are made with steel that's a lot softer than our other woodworking tools, and for the reason that it's important to have a soft metal that we can turn or distort and bend that burr over. What that means is that it's difficult to get rid of a wire edge, because that wire edge right now it's sticking out this way, and when I start honing it, it just wants to bend back instead of being honed off. So for that reason, we need to take a very light cut here, or very light pressure, so that we cut that burr off rather than simply bending it back. I have some more lubricant here. That's good. Now, I have never succeeded in getting a great edge by just honing once on each side. And the reason is not because I can't get the amount of smoothness and accuracy. It's that it takes several of these going back and forth to get rid of that burr. Now, because I'm not needing to put a lot of pressure, I don't need the support of this slot. I generally use that only when I want to put more pressure than I can control easily without a lot of support. Now I've already turned that burr back around, so I'm just going to go this way, turn it over again here, and just super lightly here, just pushing down on the side of it with my thumbs. And just a tiny bit of burr left there. I'm just going to go super light now. Again, I want to cut that burr off, not turn it around. And now I want to take another look at it. It's accurate enough, but I'm not liking the scratches I'm seeing. So I'm going to give it a little bit more time with a lighter stroke here. All the downward pressure is coming from this one fingertip here. Not much pressure at all. The rest of my handwork is just to hold everything steady while I go back and forth. Well, that's somewhat better. I'm going to go a little longer just to get rid of so many of those scratches. So there's several reasons I want to get rid of the scratches as well as I practically can. And one of them is that I don't want a jagged edge. It's going to leave a rougher surface on the wood. But also, the smoother or the least scratches I have on this edge, the stronger or effectively stronger that edge is going to be. And I think I'm also risking less cracking or other distortion as I burnish this tool. So now that I've gotten it smooth and it feels nice and sharp, it's accurately square, I'm going to take this oiled burnisher and I'm going to lay the tool about 3/4 of an inch from the edge of my guide, and I'm going to put the burnisher flat on here and then tip down to the wood, and I'm going to push this way, not this way, because essentially I'm cold forging an edge that's drawn out like this. And I want to draw the metal this way, so I need to push the burnishing rod that way. Here, I'm in conflict with what I'm trying to accomplish. So, point forward, and just about the weight of my arm, I'm going to hold my thumb right between these points to hold the tool steady at the same angle the whole way, and just make a couple of strokes. I don't want to do more than that for a bunch of reasons, but largely I don't need to. You all who have done any sharpening at all know how fragile a super sharp edge is. You've probably sharpened a chisel and bumped it the wrong way against something, and there goes your edge. It's a very fragile thing. In fact, the sharper it is, the more fragile it is. So the better a job I do tuning this and getting these edges sharp with these first two steps, the easier it is to do this step and the less pressure I need to distort that edge. So I shouldn't need more than 2 strokes with just the weight of my arm against this and that weight balance between the corner of the scraper and the corner of the block, so that I have a uniform angle end to end. Now the next step I do freehand. I'll just show you how I do it. I hold the burnishing rod just at a slight angle, hold the scraper straight up and down, and I'm going to take 1 stroke with gentle pressure, tilt it the other way, and go again. That's both edges, both burrs on those 2 edges. If you want to have a little bit more of a guide, if you're not feeling confident about freehanding it like that, you can put the scraper back into this block and leave just about a 32nd of an inch sticking out, and then put it in the vise. I'm going to work right here now. Give it a good squeeze, and again I'm going to let the burnisher ride on top of the corner here and rest against the corner of the block, and that gives me a nice guide to get a uniform burr end to end. And again, just the pressure of my arms. Now I'm already at the right angle to do the correct angle to do the other side. And do it just like that. I should be done. Again, a fragile edge like this, and especially a soft metal, these are about Rockwell 55, so they don't take much to distort. So let's find out what that did. Sharpening scrapers is dirty work, and this oil is not that easy to get out of your hands. For that reason, I'll sharpen a group of scrapers before going back to work, so that I've got enough sharp edges to get me through the task without having to get my hands dirty again. Whenever I'm using oil, or a lot of times if the oil finish gets on my hands, instead of a really chemically clean, heavy-duty cleaner, I'm going to use hand cream, or sometimes I'll use a vegetable oil. It's a little easier on the hands, and you can get most of the stuff off with that, and your hands smell nicer. And then you can just use regular hand soap, but most of it will go away just from hand cream, and it's a lot easier on your hands. I'm gonna go wash my hands and I'll be right back. Now this Bubinga is quarter saw, and I've got a radial face here almost dead perpendicular to the growth rings. And I can tell that some of the grain is going in this orientation and some of the grain is going in this orientation. So there's not a happy direction to cut this in. It's a super hard wood. It's also abrasive. So not a great candidate for hand planing, although it is planable. So what all that helps me with in scraping is that it's super hard, and it's super hard, and the shavings stay intact, so it looks really good. But also the wood itself doesn't crumble like a softer wood, even cherry and walnut would crumble under this much pressure, taking this big of a shaving. So this is a strong enough wood, I can actually unroll this shaving, and you can see that's a nice intact shaving, and it's still left the wood in great shape. Now, some people would say you can just go ahead and put a finish on that, but it's important to know that if I come back and wet this, I will have a slight raised grain effect, because I'm pressing into the wood here and around the little pores that are coming through here. That edge, the edge of the pores is going to break down a little bit, and so it's going to need, it really should be wet and then lightly sanded in a circular motion. But in general, it's a great wood for scraping. And you can see, can you get that sheen?
Here, you can see the sheen, that's good.
Right.
Okay.
Another situation I get myself into where the typical technique for scraping doesn't work very well is getting into a corner like this, because if I'm scraping like this, I crash into that. So what I'll do is just turn the scraper backwards and almost lay it down. And I can pull right into that corner all the way up to the very corner. Now you can see I'm not taking big shavings, but I am leaving the wood nice and smooth. You can also, if you're in a situation where you need to slightly cove something, you can bend the scraper and come in here like this and take shavings out this way. See that nice little shaving there? Now you don't want to take a heavy cut doing this, and you can also do the opposite. I can flex the scraper this way and take cuts on the outside of this edge. Then I can take a chamfer if I want to with this method. And I can take a nice, see that? Nice curls coming off of that without risking, because the body of the scraper is supporting, I don't have so much pressure focused right here as I would if I came up here, and I can just feel I'm destroying that edge there. But if I lay the scraper down, I can come back here, and I can even do like this if I want to, take a really gentle cut. But you can see that's a shaving right there. And I can round over an edge with this way. And that's the same edge that I was scraping that Bubinga with. There's nothing special about the edge. I can get right up into this corner here with this. So, scraper can be a very versatile tool once you learn what that edge can do and how to get that edge to cut like this. Another way that I'll use a flat card scraper is when I'm dressing up a finish. Now this is a raw board, there's no finish on here, but in fact just the other day I was needing to scrape down a lacquered finish where there was some unevenness in the finish, and I was able to true it up really beautifully with a scraper. And what I did is I sharpened the scraper right off the stone, turned a very light burr, just like I showed you, and then I put masking tape over the corners like this, so that when I scrape like this, right against the wood, there's nothing going on. Even when I lay it over like this, I'm not touching the wood. That allows me to come back here with just a tiny bit of pressure and cut right in the middle there where I want to cut. So I would just put these blue taped corners centered over the area that I want to dress and take with my thumb and press right there. And you can level a finish beautifully or take off bumps on anything really nicely with that simple technique. Just tape and thumb and press. So that's the basic scraper sharpening and using techniques that I use for just about any situation. The main thing is, keep in mind, you want a truly square corner, scratch free as you can practically get it. The burnisher that you use needs to be very hard and free of scratches, nice and smooth. If you can, guide it as much as you can, so that using this block, which is a square cut with a bandsaw, a screw here, you can burnish it with just having it sticking up lightly this way and this way. The key is light, uniform pressure on a very well-dressed edge, and the rest is easy. I also hope that answers some of your questions about why we do things the way we do with a scraper. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll share it with your friends, and I hope you'll join us again.